Hello, everyone. How are y'all doing?
Hanging in.
Hanging in,
Took my
hanging
answer.
in.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much for being a part of this. I really appreciate it.
hmm
I think it's very important to um, hear from the people who will be working the front lines. So thank you all for being a part of this.
hmm
Um, so we're going to start with the simple question of like, how are you? We'll start with Molly.
Oh, I knew it. No, it's like so appropriate for a teacher to be like, "Don't call on me," and I do that all the time. Like, "Oh, you." Um, I mean, everything's weird. Period. Right. I think it's August, which is it's really hard for me to wrap my head that we're going back to school. I feel like I just turned in my grades, and now all of a sudden, like, I need to be ready. I start in 2.5 weeks. Um, but I am going remote. And so it's planning in a different level and kind of starting a semester virtually I've never done. So in a lot of ways, I feel like I'm glad I have the prep time, and also it's also the unknown. So I don't know. I'm here, and it's strange.
I hear you. I hear you. John?
Yeah. It's just overwhelmed, I think is the word for me. It's just um in my position, I'm a teacher, but then also a coordinator. So I'm trying to coordinate all of the arts classes. And I just, it's overwhelming to think, you know, that all of these arts need to go fully online, and now we're going to have to grade these kids when before we were like, saying we were kind of grading you, and there's attendance. So with all of this going on, it's just overwhelming. There's so many questions left unanswered
Right.
that it's just we're trying to answer them, and as a coordinator, I'm having my teachers ask me questions that I know I can't answer, and I just tell them I don't have an answer, and I feel horrible, because I go then to the principal, and it's just that's where it's just like we're doing the best we absolutely can. That's how teachers do it, especially arts teachers. That's what I keep telling
Right.
my people. Like, we gonna make it through. We can improvise. We are the creative people in the room, so
Yep.
we'll make it through. But it's like trying to find that solid foundation that is not there. So
Right.
that's where we're at.
Right. Colette?
Well,
Hmm. Yeah.
I'm in a little bit of a different boat. I'm not a traditional teacher in schools.
Hmm.
I have my own private studio, and then I actually teach extracurricular. And sadly, because of my health, I was diagnosed with COVID at the end of March. I've had to step down from directing at one of my schools. I'm what you call a long hauler nowadays. Uh, I'm still struggling. I'm like really happy to be able to be here today because
I'm
that's
happy
not
to.
always a given.
Yeah.
Um, so today I'm doing pretty good, and but these days it's a struggle. Just got some not great news on some lung tests, and got to do more tests on that. But I'm still having to use oxygen. I had to sleep with it last night. Um, yeah, still lots of new symptoms coming. So it's a difficult ride. This has been a crazy summer, and I'm praying that I get better in time for the spring.
Yeah. And you were diagnosed when? When was that you were
End of
diagnosed with COVID?
March. I was
March.
end of March, hospitalized twice, been to the ER a few times since then. I can't count the number of doctors.
Right.
So it's been very friendly. Well, I shouldn't say friendly, but we know the medical people around here well now.
Yeah.
So I keep doing this, and it's because of chest pain. I don't. It's just like a automatic thing that we do as humans. So every
Yeah.
time I take a beep, it hurts. But
Right.
I think it actually does anything. It's just instinct.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm so happy to be looking at you. I love you. I'm just so happy that you're still here. All of you. I really am.
Yeah.
Thank you.
How are you, Brandon?
Yeah.
You know, I'm okay. You know, I'm in the same boat as you, Colette. We're both teaching artists, and we do, extra curricular activities, and uh, specifically for me, like musicals and stuff like that. I've had to deal with, trying to put shows up and being in the middle of Tech Week 2 days before the show opens, and then it's just canceled, and then you think that it's going to be postponed for like a month or two, but it's probably actually not going to happen at all. And that's, my heart just breaks for the kids who worked so hard on, on this, and for everyone, the crew, and it's just heartbreaking. And my anxiety has been through the roof, man, oh man. But we're getting through, and that's how you know the arts are just so important too, because we use that as an outlet to get through these tough times, and to not have that is eye-opening,
Mm-hmm.
But we're getting through. So, with that being said, according to www.cdc.gov, the ensemble forecast predicts that 175,000 to 190,000 total COVID-19 deaths will be reported by August 29th. School starts for some places on August 24th. Do you feel safe going back to school?
Whew. It's a fair question.
Molly? Anyone jump in, please.
I know. Why am I always called first, Brandon?
That's because, oh my God.
Well, like I said, I have been lucky because my campus, so I teach at a college, and we have known that we were going to go distance learning for a couple months now, like pretty shortly after the spring semester. We were told. So I never, luckily, I'm not in the quandary that a lot of teachers are about saying, do I even have a choice to go back? And because I teach in a city, I also am in a position where my campus is solely commuter. So it really impacted that decision. They had to make these decisions early because, I have students who commute 90 minutes one way on several modes of public transportation just to get to campus. So all of those factors really necessitated us to have to make the decision and think about safety in that way. And it was the first hot zone in the United States. So we had a little more time than I think some of the hot zones that are making the decisions now about school, and school opens a little earlier in some of those places. So I just have had the privilege of knowing that I would be teaching remotely. Whether or not I would have a job was different. I mean, because it depended on enrollment and things like that. And so it was impacted in that way. But in terms of classroom safety, I just have pretty much always known all summer that I was going to be not going back to campus.
Wow. Yeah, see, mine's kind of the opposite of you. Is I teach kindergarten, first and second grade theater at a local charter school in Pennsylvania. So I knew I had a job because it's an art school, and they have to employ us. So, but we didn't find out what going back to school is going to look like until, I would say, the parents are being told next week. So we just got told this week. So it's kind of like that's what I think when I talked about overwhelming, that's what a part of it is that, and, going back to the question, do I feel safe? Personally, I do. Like if I say, does John feel safe? I do. And it's, full disclosure, Colette is my wife. So I was never tested positive, but only tested negative. But we just assumed that I had it. So kind of going throughout my whole daily life, it's just very weird to think that like I'm comforted to know that like I most likely had it, so I won't get it and have horrible symptoms that are possibly lead to, lifelong symptoms. So so that's me personally, but like, as a teacher, we think about the kids. So that's where it's hard to go back just for them. We right now, this is all new. It's hybrid for us. So it's Monday, Tuesday, half the kids in the school. And then Wednesday is like a deep clean. Everybody stays home, online teaching. And then Thursday, Friday is the other half. So there, no matter what, I knew any decision would be hard, but just knowing that so many of those kids can come in and, it just takes one to basically shut down the entire school. And then, my heart goes out to the administration because they're trying to figure this out. There's schools around, there's schools around here that are going all online and, they're getting praise, but they're also getting backlash just because of the talks about how much a school provides students, especially in my realm of elementary, where some of these kids, don't have childcare. They don't have breakfast or lunch and rely on, the elementary schools to provide that. And even going online and even in the spring, we were still providing those meals. But, it just keeps going down the line of, but now mom and dad have to take off for work. Now they can't make their bills, so it's just like torn in like so many directions that like, I wish they could just stay home.
Yeah.
But administration I know is doing their best. You just pray and hope it's not politics. I have such a small school that I can tell it's not, at least from what my interaction with them, but they're just trying to do the best they possibly can. And honestly, it's keeping the kids at the school because then they can leave. And it's horrible to think that each kid has money attached to them, but that's another part of it that I know administration has to take into consideration so they can pay their teachers. And so it's just a circle of shit, if I can say that, but.
You can, it's okay. Rebel stages. What does a classroom for you look like, especially if you're teaching theater? Like what does that look like if you're trying to meet the health guidelines?
Yeah, it's in my school in particular, I've always taught just in like an open room where they ask me if I want chairs and I always say, hell no. I always want it to be open. The kids are usually just sitting on the ground on like X marks the spot, like they have their own spots. But moving forward, knowing the guidelines that we have in place, and they're still not solidified it because I just moved my classroom and it's a little bit bigger, but trying to keep them 6 feet apart is going to be hard. Like I said, I'm a coordinator too, so I'm actually more worried about the dance classes. Luckily, my two dance teachers, they are currently teaching dance, so they are kind of working around it now, trying to find out what works. But they have bigger rooms, so my dance teachers are like,
I get really good at the hokey pokey.
That's very true. We are learning hokey pokey K through 5.
Yeah.
Kick ass. Yeah, so So it's finding like they want like 6 feet boxes, like each side, and then you're fitting like 6 kids. Luckily, we're doing half, but the most we can have in a class now is like 12 or so. So even that just pushes the limit. So it's like, yeah, it's like we don't know. So then we're trying to figure out if we can use a multi-purpose room or go outside some.
Right.
So it's still unknowns. It's still truly unknowns. That at the end of the day, I think we're just going to have them closer than 6 feet, wearing masks. And good Lord, if you know a kindergartner, they aren't keeping those masks on.
I was gonna say, I think it's so interesting that like we have Molly who teaches college, and you are teaching K through 3rd, right?
Yeah, K through 2, but we have K through 5. Yeah, so it's all of it.
Yeah, it's just like, do you think that these students, like I know some college students are going back to school like on the hybrid as well. Do you think they're going to obey some of these health guidelines by wearing their mask, by respecting the 6 feet social distancing? What's your take on that? And Colette, high school, so
humans in general, no matter the age, are not doing that. So, I think that's what I'll say on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about the little babies? Baby's the same, right?
I mean, yeah, the babies, I'm just so scared. I mean, I can barely keep, snot in their nose. So, like, to think that's like this, easiest way to put it is that I've seen videos of like people making jokes about it, like, kindergartners wearing a mask and like, no, I don't want to, and then switching masks and stuff, and it's hilarious, but it like at the same time it like scares the shit out of me because they are going to do that. That's why it's funny. There's some truth in every joke. So they're going to do it. They're going to switch masks. They're going to not want to do it. It's going to fall off. They're going to step on it, and then they're going to try to put it back on, and I'm going to have to run over there and grab it. So it's like, yeah, like my heart goes out to like, because I see them for half hour, 40 minutes or so. I don't even know the schedule this year. But like the classroom teachers, my heart more goes out to them because they're going to have to be in the same room dealing with those same, in my example, 12, 15 kids, yeah. One kid, I'm guessing, is hard enough. I don't have children of my own, but I can only imagine parents like going out to eat or just going to Walmart or wherever they go. They probably have the hardest time keeping the mask on a kindergartner or first grader and wearing it right as well, not this, but this.
Right.
So.
Right. Colette?
A mask is not a chin guard. That's my favorite
Yes,
quote.
right?
Yeah, right.
We're not asked to wear a chin guard. You were asked to wear that.
Yeah. And now the signs are like, don't wear it like this. Don't wear it. It's like, we first started with wear a mask, and then people are realizing, oh wait, shit, people don't know how to actually wear their fucking mask. So
well, remember how we all started?
Like,
they were like, don't wear the mask. That's counterproductive. And I was like, what? Do we all remember that? There was a point where like people were like, don't wear the mask. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
So
and
I'm
just
like,
flat out. Yeah.
Yeah, that was when I got COVID.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just so we know, because we actually don't know anybody else who's gotten it.
No.
We went to like when everything started and everything initially shut down, but you were still allowed to like go out for like exercise and necessities. We went to 2 parks and the CVS, and we were carrying hand sanitizer with us and like trying to like keep our social distancing, but there weren't any masks.
Yeah.
So, wear your fucking mask, people.
Wear your mask. Wear your mask.
But,
your experience with the high schoolers. Tell me about that.
I'm similar to John in the sense that like, as somebody who has it, and now I've tested negative twice, but I'm still experiencing the symptoms, obviously. It's not a great risk for me, at least for months, they say, so I'm told, but to really be reinfected. The worst is it's more likely to be reactivated within me than for me to be reinfected. So I'm not as concerned about myself, and I'm actually not very much of a risk to others. In fact, I'm less of a risk than other people because of that. But having been through what I've been through, I'm terrified for these children. Like, terrified. I firmly believe, it used to be the question to me, like, why did it hit you so hard and all these kinds of things? And we now realize that it's because I was so healthy that I've survived, basically, with all the damage that has ended up in my lungs and what I've sustained. It's because I was in such great shape being active that I'm still here. And considering kids I know with asthma and underlying immune conditions and all these other things, that they're going in here and not knowing who has what or who is asymptomatic. I mean, John is somebody who all of our doctors have said, there's no way he doesn't have it unless he's a fucking alien. There's no way he got out of it without having it, and he's been completely asymptomatic this entire time. Not even a fucking sniffle.
No.
So there are so many people walking around like that, and how much damage can be done. Like the pain that I've gone through, crazy, vomiting, so weak, John has had to carry me. As somebody who, Brandon, I mean, you know me, is strong, does regularly 16, 18-hour days nonstop and loves it.
Yep.
And now I sleep 16, 18-hour days. That scares me for our children. And my life may now be shortened by several years. To take that from these children is horrifying. And I don't think it's fair to them.
I think you also bring up another really good point, is that just the strain, I mean, everyone is dealing with the strain of this whole situation, but should basically, I had many students, just because of the area I teach in, whose family members had it, whose family members died, whose income was severely impacted to the point where school was the last thing. I had a student who, there were, refrigerated trucks on the street and that they would see every day, So the emotional strain of living with that is another layer of going back to school that is not really that very real reality of your students and their families dealing with a potential catastrophic illness on top of the whole pandemic culture that we're living with, that is going to impact the classroom and the classroom that you can create and try to hold on for the school year. And that pressure for an educator or their family or their student's family, that is all very possible with back to school.
Molly, you're totally right, because I've actually been having similar discussions with other professionals in the higher ed arena. And I've been saying, as we've been talking about this, because in my work with high schoolers, the number one thing that I've been seeing, because I kept in contact with them, is depression. That throughout the pandemic, their parents were reaching out to me saying, Colette, can you reach out to so-and-so? I can't get her out of bed. High schoolers were reaching out to me saying, I just don't feel like doing anything. Some of them who were great students failed their classes because they just got depressed. Some of them are now on antidepressants, which I'm so happy they got help. There's nothing wrong with that. I can't make that statement strongly enough. But who this is the first time in their life because this affected them severely.
Right.
And if we are going back, if people are going back, I worry that schools are not prepared for that, like you said. I know I have not heard of those resources being upped in any way or talked about in any way in this area, when really this is trauma. I mean, it's true trauma. Even for, and none of these kids that I'm talking to you about have had direct family members or friends who have passed or been affected by COVID besides me. It's literally just because things shut down, they weren't able to see their friends, they lost those extracurricular, the chance for expression, everything that was normal to them, and didn't know how to cope. And so I think that however we're going to proceed forward, we as a society, community, have to be prepared to support these children at whatever age, because it's really, like I said, trauma, and however that's affecting them as they develop, we need to be there to support them.
Yeah. And as teachers, I think we take on that role as like the classroom teacher. It's just another, tick on the, our job description. It's like now counselor, because my school in particular, we have one for the entire school. The entire school. Now, before her caseload may have been out of 400 kids, I'm just making up a number, let's just say 40. I'm just going to go 10%. Now it's 400, because they're all dealing, like what Molly was saying, they're all dealing with this now. They're all having to deal with some, with this in some capacity, whether it's, indirect or direct. And so it ends up on the classroom teachers. And like you're saying, I don't know if the resources are there. I don't know if professional development is happening for all of these classroom teachers, because quite honestly, I think administration's so worried about just them, changing their curriculum online. Or, they're so worried about that like, I know in my class, I'm going to have to take 2 weeks, a month. I don't even know how many times I'm going to see these kids a week, but at least that amount to just like be a human with them and to just have an honest conversation with them. I mean, even in kindergarten, that's how the kind of teacher that I am, is like just being very honest and open with them and like want to hear what they're thinking. It's just, it makes me laugh all the time hearing their little comments, but like it's real. And like, even if it's just, I don't know what's going on, like that, I just know I'm going to hear that, or like, mommy's scared, I think. And I just know I'm going to hear those things. And, having the theater background and having the empathy, I think I'll be able to deal with that. But for the teachers, that don't have that background and may feel, flustered, and without that training, I just think things may get worse, and not, and it's not their fault. It's teachers, it's not, they need to know it's not their fault if they don't know what to say or how to deal with, 10 kids that want to hug them and you can't. So hopefully, I hope the resources are out there. I just wish, I wish more could go to it, but I'm not optimistic, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I think that's such a good point to what you were saying too, about, it added to the job description. And I always think like, I think that needs to be part of the conversation of what teachers, especially public school teachers who are like, I'm not a full-time teacher, I'm a part-time professor, right? And it's very different than being in a classroom, a 10th grade classroom every year, a staple in the community. I am not that. But what we are asking teachers to do, and what that job description keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's not just educate my child. It often, is provide for this classroom resources. It's, provide emotional support that you might not be trained or have the resources for. It is about safety. It is about, and now it is about health. And so that is far more in that job description than a teacher is trained to do when they go to college and say, I want to major in education. And
Mhm.
is that fair?
Right, right. What does that look like to you though? Like to really enhance the mental health programs in these schools, because these kids are gonna they are gonna really need to rely on, these programs. What does that look like? What does an ideal situation look like to you? I mean, of course they're gonna rely on you, and luckily, all of us, deal with the arts, so we can use some sort of expression in that. But we also need some sort of support behind us as well. You know what I mean? And what does that look like?
I think the
Mhm.
schools have to invest in those resources, either
Right.
with training, like paid training for
Mm-hmm.
teachers, or they need to expand, as Colette was saying, expand and invest in mental health of students and bring in professionals as, hired staff that are there and part of the community. But I think there's, even though we all are, or I just met Colette and John, so I don't want to make any assumptions. But I think from the conversation that we're all in the arts, but none of us are social workers or
Mhm.
have any kind of qualification in support systems and resources in that way, or medically. I mean, I don't.
Mhm.
So there is a danger of I can give what I think is right, but I am also not trained in that to do that. So, as a parent, I would want someone who is qualified to do that,
Mm-hmm.
not just my empathetic,
Right.
big hearted feeling theater person,
Right.
Yeah.
necessarily.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the, like, for us, it's that we call it PD. So professional development. That is where I think they're going to put the possibly, I shouldn't say they possibly will put the money, but it's going to feel like a Band-Aid,
Yeah.
for sure. Because the truth is most professional development, at least in my, you know, what I've been through professional development, it wasn't always the best. And it would, it always felt like a Band-Aid, even for just like how to write curriculum. You have 3 hours of that, and then it's on to the next topic. So like it could easily be a Band-Aid that they say, okay, yeah, we'll put resources toward it to help our teachers, and then they bring in one person for, like I said, 2 hours, 3 hours, and then they're like, we did it, we got it, we're good, teachers know what to do. And it's like, people go to school for this. Like we're saying, like we could use
Right.
our empathetic side, but it's like people go to school for this for years, and you can't teach that in 3 hours. So
Right.
I agree with Molly. That's going to be the Band-Aid that schools possibly do, but you got to bring in the professionals that know what the hell they're doing.
Right.
I think in an ideal world, we would have a specific class or a specific period dedicated to resilience and mental health options for the kids, for them to help themselves, even if it's some type of group therapy led by a social worker or something like that.
Mm.
Um, so all the kids would absolutely be getting it. And then there would be more counselors or social workers brought into the school so that we could ensure that every child had somebody that they could talk to one-on-one, because I think, at least in the district that I've been working in, I know that many of the parents couldn't afford that
Yeah.
help either. And I recognize that, like, what I'm saying, that's why I say ideal is completely unrealistic and there's no funding for this. Even, although I think even the class idea or a period just for the kids to talk, just for them to say, this is what scares me, and for some teacher to give them resources or something would be helpful. I think what's really dangerous, and what I saw that affected the children that I was working with, is that their extracurricular activities where they had expression, where they had a place to be themselves. And for me, because that's what I read, was theater, where they said repeatedly, this is where I get to be myself. This is where I get to not worry about being judged. This is where I can express things, my fears and things like that. And I recognize not for all kids it's theater. For some, it might be sports. For some, it might be, whatever it is.
Right.
Even all of those are being altered. You're not going to have that connection anymore. And so for us to be throwing them back into this situation that is dangerous and new and coming from something else, and then for what they normally rely on for that kind of stabilization, to also either be completely different or not even there. I think in some places we don't even know if the theater program is going to be happening.
I know.
Some of the art programs are going to be happening.
Chorus,
Yeah.
music, yeah.
And I think that's such a good, oh, sorry, go ahead,
No,
Colette.
no. I just think that's kind of scary and sad, and another reason why we have to up other resources to support them. Sorry, Molly, go ahead.
No, it was a Zoom lag. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But I think that's such a good point, and this is perhaps a whole different panel. But I think you're just underscoring the point. Sorry, it might be. I mean, we could go on forever about all of these and how they intersect. But like, I think there's a misconception that art and entertainment is, not essential. We have this like hashtag of, save the arts, arts essential. But it goes back to what Colette is saying, is a lot of people don't realize that includes your arts education programs and your community theaters and vital things to the economy in your small town. It's not just big A-list celebrities saying, I need some extra money so I can stay home, which I don't know why that's the perception anyway. Whatever. Right. But that's why it's so important that the arts get some help, because I don't think people realize, oh, you're a teaching artist that comes in and provides your kids the great middle school musical every year that makes them feel really seen. That's going to be the first thing to go, and that teaching artist is not going to be able to make a living and may not ever be able to come back to the arts.
Right.
Think on it.
This is why you need the merch. I told Brandon he needs merch that's like mug with like T with B.
Yep.
And then so when you sip pointedly, you also have merch. Gotta get the funding somehow. It's the merch.
Yeah, make sure your panelists will buy them too.
Yeah.
We can do it too.
Do that,
Like,
I'll send everyone a free mug. You don't get
Yeah.
oh my goodness.
I am the Whoopi Goldberg of our studies, so